welcome back, friends. Sarah absolutely laid an excellent groundwork. That interiority, not just the metric-driven goals, assessment, the standardized testing sort of things, but within the heart, because that's right. And that, why are we doing that, will come much, came with the twins there when they all, there's 13, 14. They're bigger than me, and there were two of them. And they said, oh, we're not going to do this anymore. And there had to have been a head check as, yes, we are. Yes, we are. So for me, I knew I wanted a classical liberal education. And I knew I liked to do curriculum development. I just like that. And that's not a judgment on those who use box curriculums in any way, shape, or form. Not at all. It's just that I like to tinker. And perhaps I'm contrary enough. Let's think of it as a deficiency within my own self. I can't just take the status quo. And I did know which math curriculum I wanted, and I knew the reader and the approach to reading, because I had some training for, it was a continuing education course I took in explicit phonics, but it's the phonic that was underneath the 1800 readers, the McGuffey reader set, the Spalding and McCullough method. But those are some big touchstones. You have, and I knew how I wanted the faith taught. I had liked Ignatius' faith series, and so and we have a very integrative faith home. So you get your reading, you get your math, got the faith. Penmanship was always, I knew penmanship, contrary to what is the fad in education out there. I knew that was critically important. And then the rest you start to put it together, right? But that was just me. Maybe because I'll go into something else here in just a second. So we'll talk to Sarah about that.
I would agree with that. But I think that with a lot of the people who are homeschooling right now, or who are kind of being thrust into this,
correct.
There's not going to be a lot of time necessary for self-reflection and for thinking and for kind of learning about different teaching methods or different styles. And I would like to reassure people like that for the first year, there really are a lot of really wonderful resources out there that you can buy the whole curriculum, as it were, right, packaged. It can actually just be sent to your house as a whole. And that might be very reassuring to some people, that they think, well, I don't have time to think about all of those things. And there are some very tried and true ones. Maybe what we can do is just put a list of some recommended ones up on your site. And by recommending some, we don't mean to disparage others. These are just ones that you and I have a personal acquaintance with, and so we would have a little bit more.
We just know it better. But Sarah's right. If we started trying to be holistically comprehensive on homeschooling curriculum, that in and of itself could make some people go into panic mode, because there's just so much there.
There's so much. But there are boxes that you can buy, and you know what? I would like to also reassure people that, at the very beginning when we started having these talks, one of the things that you had pointed out was simplification, right? How this coronavirus has forced us to recognize the difference between needs and wants, right? Because we can't just go out and do whatever we want anymore. Now we have to venture out for things that we need, right? So we've been able to really kind of simplify. And the same thing is true with the modern day education. My personal opinion is that in some instances, there's way too much information thrown at the kids, too many subjects, too many divisions. And really, if you go back to a very simplified form of education, particularly when the kids are in the younger grades, a penmanship course, a phonics course, a simple math, and like even down to math flashcards and drill games and different things like that. Like you can really simplify what you're doing with the kids the first year, because I think what you're going to find out anyways is that when you go back to those very simplified basics, that you're going to find that there are a lot of gaps that you thought were closed, like you did when you were teaching the kids spelling, right? Your kids were probably just naturally good spellers. They were able to look at the list, write it out, done, and they just didn't have any problems with spelling. But now they are not only pretty good spellers, now they're confident in their ability to spell because they know why something is spelled the way that it is, right? So for some parents, I would also say, don't feel like this is something where you have to go out and take on 14 different subjects either, particularly if your kids are beneath the grade of like sixth or fifth grade. Those are still considered primarily and soundly within the grammar years, where you are only giving them the basics. So they don't have to write essays for you. It's actually probably better that they actually copy beautiful essays for you. Correct. So, get out a book of Laura Ingalls Wilder if your daughter is interested in that, and have her copy paragraphs from that, or, wherever their interests lead them. I would encourage you, to look at this as an opportunity to simplify what you're teaching them, to make sure that, that the foundation blocks under them are very sure.
That's exactly right. Sarah there are few things that need to be attended to, if not daily, like 3 times a week, 4 times a week. That's a high frequency rate in homeschooling. Right. And we're not talking 40, at least for me, right. We're not talking these big chunks of time that the traditional, and I want to be very clear, there's no criticism of teachers of any sort with how they have to organize their classrooms and their schedules, because they different necessarily have different agendas and different goals than what I have.
Right.
They have 25 very different, or 30 depending on this class. They have all these. Their number one thing is to keep these kids safe. Right. Are they safe? Are they protected? Right. Well, see, that's not my first thought, is to keep my kids safe. Right. My first thought is I want them well formed, because safety is an underlying foundation.
It's assumed. Right. It's assumed.
It is assumed. I don't have to get to there.
Right.
And so the whole thing is of a different. It's just different. And that simplification, when you. And then your box curriculums can help you with this, because, they could say, you're supposed to devote this amount of time to these courses for this X, whatever. And then you can tweak that even so, because I knew every day was, and for me, I think of what are my, I forget if it wasn't St. Anselm. Maybe it's St. Alfred Renaud with the spiritual friendship. Anyway, but right. One of the great masters said, our royal hours. What are our royal hours?
Right.
And so for us, we would have our pledge in Latin. We would say our prayers in Latin, because Latin, that's another big, for me, was a huge point of my classical liberal arts curriculum. And so we did have a little Latin. We would have our penmanship to get things going, and English. Right. English was primary, even though I have a strong science English, because everything.
What do you think, Karen, I think it's actually one of the problematic deficits with the modern structure of education, is that they don't make allowances for the fact that the brain is actually developing different abilities at different times. And so, for instance, like with my children, they were all very voracious readers. My son Jack when he was a little boy. Once he started to read, I mean, he just read. And I think that before he was, in 5th grade, I don't think that I'm exaggerating when I say that he read probably 50,000 pages of children's literature. Like, I mean, it was almost impossible to keep him in books, right? So, but he was not interested in math. I mean, he would do it, but it was not like something that he loved. Science was not necessarily something that he loved, but he ended up becoming, he got a degree in physics from the University of Virginia. And now he's working, and he's an officer in the Air Force as a physics officer. And I think sometimes what we are doing, unfortunately, to the detriment of our children, is that we are not laying the foundation in the correct manner. And so consequently, what you end up having are children who think, well, I'm not very good at math. I'm not very good at science. Or vice versa. I'm not very good at reading. I'm not very good at literature, right? But it's because we don't allow for the fact that their brain is going to be able to develop these certain skills at certain age sets. And if they've had so many failures up to that point, then they just learn to not like something. And that becomes problematic, because even like with food or with a language or with a word, the sciences will all tell us that you have to taste something or misremember something or do it wrong 7 times before you have ownership of it, right? So homeschooling is going to give you that little bit of latitude, because it's okay if they spend their time on language, because as well as I do, that within Latin and within language, particularly really well-formed grammar, there is an immense amount of logic that is being taught. And logic is essentially the underpinnings of all mathematics and all sciences. And if you don't have a strong underpinning in both the language and the grammar arts, and you can't use your own words in logical sequences, it's going to be very hard, unless you are specifically math brained, to be able to use numbers in logical sequences.
That's exactly right. And we will pick that up in the next episode. To the next time, my friends. Fides, Oratio.